Okie dokie, folks. How's it going? This is Kyle Shaw, aka the Canadian Goose, and I'm here back with another edition of Monday Night Shaw on Love Wrestling. This week on the show, I have a very special guest, a man that I'm pretty sure is employed by Love Wrestling, but might also be employed by like individuals within Love Wrestling. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of that. Anyway, it is, of course, the Thickness Reid Matthews, mainstay of the Alberta wrestling scene here. He's been in PWA, Force Pro Wrestling, Real Canadian Wrestling, Love Pro Wrestling, and many other pro wrestling ventures. How's it going, Reid?
Good. Yourself, Goose?
I'm doing pretty decent. I'm tired.
Yeah. Long day.
Well, it wasn't too bad today. It's just I went to BC this weekend, and it was like a 12-hour drive there, and then like I didn't sleep in the car, and then
it was a 3-day tour, right?
Yeah. We left on we left Thursday night at 8:30, got to Kelowna at 8:30 in the morning. Then I think we pulled off at a gas station to try and just like catch a few Z's there, but I don't know, sleeping in a car is not
not the same.
It just doesn't work for me. So I think I got like 20 minutes of sleep before I like actually went to the show and did the match and stuff.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it was like it was a long day, but a very very much a good time and a lot of fun. And then then we did the show the next night, which was in a venue that was only again like 40 minutes away, and but then we had the 12-hour drive back home, and so I'm just a little worn out from that. But
do you ever find it's always the drives back that are the worst?
Sometimes, yeah, because like this trip was really good, but last trip I went with the two guys that I went with, like we'd been in the car for a while, and like people were starting to get on each other's nerves and stuff, so it started to get like a little tense between those two, and that made it awkward for me, who just likes to get along with everybody, you know. But nonetheless, a lot of fun was had and whatnot. So it was all in all, I had a really good time, and I got to have a good match with Rick Jules and a good match with Marty Sugar, and I won a championship belt, and
I saw that.
Lost a championship belt, and it was a fun time and experience I'll never forget.
That's awesome.
But yeah, we're not really here to cover my my travel exploits. We're kind of here to talk about you, bud. So how about you, man? Like what got you into wrestling?
So like back, because I didn't start wrestling till 2013, and at the time WWE had like all their documentaries out on Netflix. So it started with The Rock's documentary on Netflix, and just steamrolled from there.
So you just watched this documentary one day and you were like, "Oh yeah, I want to do this."
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, solid. And it was The Rock's documentary on Netflix.
Rock's documentary, yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out which Rock documentary that was. Like, it would have been one of the DVDs, right, that they put out.
Yeah,
about
I
want to
say it was like the build up for the WrestleMania of 2013, maybe even 2012, because I believe he did WrestleMania back to back, right?
Yeah, he did one. He did two against John Cena.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the first one or the second one.
Yeah, the first one was Once in a Lifetime, and then the second one was Once in a Lifetime again, I guess.
Part 2.
Yeah, but they're good matches for sure. Like and like The Rock has always killed it at WrestleMania, for sure.
Very true.
The one with him and Hulk Hogan is like an all-time classic for me.
See, I have like a list of matches I have to watch, and that is one of them. I wanted to go through all of the WrestleManias, but I don't have the app for the network, so it's just trying to find the time to search it up, find a website, and sit down and watch 3 hours of manias.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, I do have the app thing, but I've also definitely got that video or got that video on like DVD and stuff just because, you know, I was kind of the prime age for that sort of thing when it was going on, right? Like
True.
when I talk to like a lot of the younger people and whatnot, like I'm assuming you're a lot younger than I am, but like I
Yes,
I
I don't even know how old you are, so maybe.
I'm 38.
Oh yeah, I'm 12 years younger than you.
Yeah, yeah, see, which means, like, when I was, like, 12 years old, in, like, the perfect time to start watching wrestling, like, legit, like, when I was, like, 12 years old was, like, 1998. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, right when the Attitude Era was, like, starting up, right?
Yep.
And, like, right in the thick of it, and then, like, you weren't even born, right? So it's just this weird thing for me because it's, like, very much like that's the era that caught me and I was in the perfect age range. Like if you watch the Attitude Era, you can completely tell that they're catering to 13-year-old like boys, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially from like the clips I've seen. And it's interesting when I look back because like I had a bunch of friends in high school who all knew about wrestling. Like
Mm,
when I actually like got into wrestling, it's like I've heard of The Undertaker, I've heard of Triple H, like I've heard of these names before, but had no recollection of what they were tied to. So my friends would all bring them up and we like wrestle on trampolines, but it did not click in for me at all. And now looking back, I'm like, if I would have started watching wrestling when all my friends did, I literally would have caught like the end of the Attitude Era.
yeah, like that. I think the end of the Attitude Era is like 2002. I would think.
Man, that'd be like I was like at that time I'm like 5, 6, 7, so it's like I probably would have like understood
Yeah,
at
I
least,
hear
right?
you.
So
Yeah. Like, I think the first ever, like, pay-per-view I watched, because my dad used to get, like, his boss used to get the pay-per-views, and we go over to his boss's house and watch the pay-per-view, and at that time, I didn't care about the wrestling. I was not a sports fan. I was like, "You watch your sports." I'd go hang out in my boss's kid's room and play with his Ninja Turtle toys or whatever, you know?
mhm.
But I do remember we watched the Royal Rumble, the one with Undertaker and Yokozuna, and they fight in a coffin match. And then Undertaker gets put in the coffin at the end of the match, and then at the end of the match, because like literally the whole roster comes out and helps Yokozuna beat him or whatever. And then at the end of the match, a lightning bolt hits the coffin, and then the Undertaker rises from the big screen, and you're like,
Oh, that's
"Oh,
cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah." So it was like, "Oh, wait, maybe this isn't just like maybe this isn't like hockey is, like
Mhm.
some dumb sport. Like there's storylines going on here. Like a lightning bolt just hit that coffin, and the guy inside suddenly appeared above like the big screen. Like this is dope, you
Yeah,
know."
that definitely eye-catching TV.
Yeah, yeah. So when you did end up first getting into wrestling, like you went to train with Lance Storm, right?
Yep. Yeah, I trained with Lance Storm beginning of 2015.
And what road led you to Lance Storm? Like, did you just hear that that's the wrestling school to go to, or
Oh, so
like,
like I was like looking around, kind of like putting a little bit of feelers out, and actually my dad was talking to a friend of his who mentioned it. And I was just like, "Oh, sure, let's check it out." And sure enough, I was like, "Yeah, let's go with this one." It was like really, it was not me at all. It was all my dad on that part.
oh, okay. So did your dad like cover your enrollment fee and stuff?
Um, God, I don't remember. It's been almost 8 years. I don't remember because at the time, like I was working like construction, so I had some money, so I might have paid it. But like my
Oh,
parents have
okay.
always supported me. Like they helped me get my first gear and helped me get my first merch. So they've always been
Yeah.
very supportive of my wrestling.
That's solid. My mom is really supportive as well. Like there's a part of her I can tell hates it because like when I come home and I'm all sore and like jacked up and like she can tell she's like, "Oh, but
Yep.
like she also understands that like when I come home and I'm all jazzed up and like I'm riding that adrenaline high, like
Hmm.
I think she gets it. So,
My
um
that's what my fiance is like too.
yeah, yeah. So when you started, when you went over to Lance, when you said that was 8 years ago?
Yeah, it'll be 8 years in January.
Okay, was there anybody else in your class that would be some people we might have heard of?
So, to my knowledge, there is one, two, three, only four of us wrestling at the moment. You would know a fifth one, Aiden Adams.
Okay, yeah,
No, not Aiden Adams. What
that's
was his name?
Ennis.
Yes, yeah, Ennis.
Yeah,
Ennis was in my class. Giselle Shaw was in my class. There's a gentleman in Italy named Rocco Casanova, and a gentleman I believe in Pittsburgh named Mambo Italiano.
the guy in Italy is Rocco Casanova, and
Rocco
the guy.
Casanova, he has like a lion head of the pride type gimmick. It's actually really neat. I think he does a good
Okay,
job with it.
but the guy from Italy is not the one called Mambo Italiano.
No, the guy in Pittsburgh is actually from Italy. He just moved to Pittsburgh.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Oh, solid.
Yep.
Did those guys? Did that Italy guy? Did he wrestle for RCW a little bit?
I think he did. Um, I don't know what he went. I don't know what his indie name was at the time. I just remember his name was Andre.
Okay.
He was kind of tall, skinny, had like a big tattoo on his arm here.
Yeah. Did he get did he go to NXT or anything?
He did. I think he's had extra work on WWE and AEW, and I believe he's done a dark match. I don't know if he's done NXT.
Oh, okay.
He might
And
have though. It's hard to say.
then was there an Italian big boss man that was part of
Uh,
your group, or was that just somebody else? Because I remember the first ever RCW show that I went to, there was an Italian big boss man.
he kind of. I don't remember what his. That was Rocco Casanova. So both of those guys came from Italy together, and they actually had prior wrestling experience. So they went and did like. I think they went did RCW, and then two of my other classmates did PWA.
Okay.
And yeah, the other guy is a kind of a shorter, stout kind of fellow. So and he was kind of like a boss man gimmick, like
Like
Italian
he's
boss
straight
man. So
like this guy, the one I'm talking about, straight up wore like the big boss man's
oh
costume.
yeah,
Yeah,
he had that
like
exact outfit. Yeah,
yeah. That was pretty fantastic,
yeah.
actually. Like I wasn't holding it against the guy because I was like, yeah, just go up there and have some fun. And I remember he got dove on too by Jesse Neal. Jesse Neal did a big dive off the. You've been to the festival hall where they have there's like a balcony there.
Is
Pride jumped off it once
oh the
too.
one in Red Deer?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Well, I was at that. That was the first RCW show I ever went to, and Jesse Neal from TNA jumped off there onto Italian Big Boss Man, Squig, Cujo, probably the other Italian guy.
yeah, I believe he
Yeah,
wore. I want to say he wore a mask at the time. I don't know if that helps remember him or not, but yeah, they both did RCW shows.
yeah. So when you eventually graduated from Storm Academy, how did you get hooked up into your first matches, and who were they for?
So my first matches were with PWA. Lance and Kurt had a good relationship, so Lance put in a good word for me and helped me get this shot there. My first match was like five of my classmates and one PWA guy. It was myself, the big boss Italian guy, um, my buddy Drew against the other Italian guy. There's another guy that used to wrestle. He's in the States now. I don't remember what his name was. He had like a surfer dude gimmick and Frenetico. So that was my first actual match.
Okay.
But then my first like actual like I'm Reid Matthews, I'm wrestling was actually against Sheik Shabazz.
So was this first one was that like just some sort of weird six-way scramble match, or
Yeah,
where
it
you,
was a
you
six.
didn't
It was
even use your wrestling name?
well. So I know I thought of it. I had a name at the time. I wanted to go by Cyrus,
Oh, okay.
But so we did the match, and it was kind of like oh, like we'll use this to see if we want to bring you on type deal. So we did the 6-way scramble, and or just yeah, it was just a 6-way match, a 3v3, and then after that they brought me on, but they're like, oh, we're not a fan of the names, you need to change it. So then I came up with Reid Matthews.
Okay. Was there any like is there a story behind why you chose Reid Matthews as your name?
So you have you watched Criminal Minds?
Not like intently, but
But do you know the character Reid? It's like
I don't know
the
any of the characters. I know the guy
so
from Will and Grace is on there.
there's a guy on there named Reid. I don't remember his last name in the show. Um, but he's like the brainy character, and I really liked how he spelled his name with Reid. And actually, it was my sister who mentioned it because I asked her, I'm like, I need a new name. And then Matthews is my middle name. Like my actual
Okay,
shoot middle name is Matthews. So Reid Matthews, put them
solid.
together.
And do you were you given any kind of instruction when you were coming up with a new name? Like, were they like, "Oh, we don't like Cyrus because it's too like
Because I
you're
believe they there was a guy in WWE who had the name Cyrus.
yeah,
Um, so that
Don
was one of the
Callis."
yeah, that's one of the reasons why. And then they also wanted two names. They wanted a first and last name. That was pretty much the only thing I was given.
Okay, and then where did the thickness part come from?
So that's actually from Kurt's son at the time, Fury Cody Sorokin. At the time, we were the Millennial Rebels, just kind of doing our thing. But when I first started wrestling, I was in fairly good shape. Like I wasn't like shredded the six pack, but I was in pretty good shape. And he always called me the thickness. And we were just kind of joking on one show, and they were like, "Oh, you should come out to that. Like you're the thickness, Reid Matthews." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And sure enough, that it just told what about Ivan? I was just like, "Yeah, you're gonna introduce me as the thickness, Reid Matthews," and it's only been up since.
Solid, solid. I mean, yeah, like there's a lot of like, I don't know. I find that it like choosing a name has to be such a hard thing to do, especially like, like you don't want to come across as too generic, but you don't want to come across as too phony. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? I mean, uh, my name is obviously like kind of a weird. Like, nobody goes, "Oh, what's your name?" "Oh, Canadian Goose." Like, like it's not. It's definitely phony, but it's like more so on the gimmicky side. But like
Mhm.
for like a guy like you, it's got to be really hard to just kind of come up with two names that sort of sound good together, but also don't sound like contrived.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. Like when I was picking names, I'm like, I want these two names to like flow. I want it to sound like a real person's name, not like you
Mhm.
hit auto generate on somebody's in like a name in a game or something.
Yeah,
When you
like
like auto generate names and it gets you like Mr. Big Hat or something like that, you know? It's like I
yeah,
wanted
or
something that was smooth. And then when they came up with the thickness, I was just like, I like it. It's fun. I enjoy it.
solid. So, how long was it before you started wrestling under the Thickness name? Like, how many matches do you
Uh,
have where you're just plain old fashioned Reid Matthews?
I was plain old fashioned Reid Matthews for almost, I think it was a year and a half by the time everything was said and done. Because like I did my first year wrestling, I was just green, plain Reid Matthews, and then Colton Kelly and I teamed up in 2016 in October, and then I believe it was January or February. Like I believe it was before we got the titles, if I remember correctly, and we got the tag titles in March of 2016, I believe.
How did you
So,
like teaming up uh, with Colton?
oh, I give that man credit for kind of opening me up because like when I first started, I was like really shy and like didn't want to like, oh, I want to try this and whatnot. And being with him and him being like very like, oh, we can do anything. Like if you want to do something, just ask me and I'll do it with you. So we worked in a ladder match, I believe my second year, might even been my first year. And that kind of slowly opened my shell. And then when he kind of took me under his wing and we teamed together, it was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed it. And like I said, I give credit to that guy for kind of opening me up from my shell.
That's completely fair. I can kind of like I can relate to that situation. Like Colton's brother Sydney, he's very much the same way. Like he'll see that like, and even MRB's kind of got good at it now, where he'll see me like standing there thinking about something or putting something together in my head and be like, hey, what's your idea, right? Like
Hmm.
because they kind of know that I'm not about to just start offering stuff up usually unless I'm like prompted to. But especially like a guy like Sid, like yeah, if I explain to him a wild, wacky idea, he'll be like, "Let's try it," and I'll be like, "Well, if it goes wrong, you could really hurt yourself." Oh, that doesn't matter. Let's just do it
Yep.
anyway. Like,
Yep.
okay, yeah,
That's Sydney in a nutshell too.
yeah. Sydney's crazy because like you'll show up at a show to do a match with him, and he will present you with ideas where you're like, you have to legitimately be like, oh, I don't know, man, I don't want to hurt you, like like
That's one of my
all
favorite
his
things about Sydney.
a bunch of the stuff he comes up with is always to kill him,
Yeah, it's always
you know.
about him. Like
Yeah,
I'm wearing the OG Clandestine Society shirt from the first Clandestine Society, and I remember he came up to me, but it was the day before, and he's like, "Do you want to do the Orange Crush Power Bomb?" And I'm like, "What's the Orange Crush Power Bomb?" And sure enough, we got that into the to our match, and the next night, it's like
yeah,
he comes up with all the crazy things, and it's hilarious because like even before he wrestled, like when he was a ref for PWA and whatnot, or he would just come to the Edmonton shows. He'd pull me aside. He'd be like, "Thickness, how does this sound?" And as soon as you hear that, he's like, "Oh, this is gonna be wild."
yeah. He's one of my favorite people to be in the ring with for sure, and especially to wrestle because I know he's down for whatever,
Hmm.
and it makes me more down for whatever too,
Exactly.
because like I know, okay, well, if he's gonna let me do an Orange Crush power bomb to him, which I've never done to him, but if I at least remotely suggested that I'd like to, he would be like, "Oh yeah, totally. This is how you do it, right?"
Yeah. Oh,
Then he would show me
entirely.
how to do it. Uh,
Like trying
um,
to explain it, like because I've tried using it with other people, and it's like trying to explain the way he does it is hard. Like he just like when he thinks of these ideas and he brings them to you, he is like confident you can do it. But then at the same time, it's like I think I went to B-Rek Garani, and I was like, I wanted to try it with him, but it's just trying to get the hand placement and the right timing was ridiculously hard.
yeah, yeah. No, I hear you, and like legit, if he had come to me and said, "Do you want to do a Orange Crush power bomb tonight on me?" I'd have been like, "No, no, I don't." like, let's maybe I could do like a regular power bomb in a match before I advance on to like Orange Crush power bombs,
Right?
But um, but no, I absolutely love Sydney, and I have a real special place in my heart for Colton as well because not only are they brothers, but I've had some good matches with Colton, and like he was the first guy that let me do that crazy Sister Abigail where his feet are on the ropes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I explained it to Sydney, and I guess Sydney went home and told him what it was, and then yeah, they just showed up and were like, "You're doing that move tonight." I was like, "Okay, cool," you
Yeah.
know, like, yeah. Um, so how long was it that you said you teamed with Colton for?
I want to say I might even have my timeline off. I might have not have been myself for a year. I might have. I think I started in March. Then October of that year, so October 2015 is when he decided to team up. And I believe it was into 2016 when they gave me the nickname the Thickness. Might have been like I think it was. I feel like it was around the summertime. And then so we teamed from that October to 2017 anniversary show. Yeah, it was the 2017 then. 2017, the anniversary show March, so almost 2 years.
That's pretty good. Like, especially by like indie wrestling standards, like it seems like every time I start a tag team with a guy, we're like max like 6 months
Hmm.
before there's some sort of implosion or something, you know. Um, uh, that and it just is what it is, right? Like
Hmm.
it's indie wrestling. People have like schedules to keep, and you know, then the booker gets all kinds of brand new ideas and stuff. Um, uh, but that's an impressive run as a tag team. Have you considered rejoining with Colton and starting a new team with him?
Have a couple times. Um, Usually, just we end up doing different things.
Yeah.
But I won't say I've never thought about it. Like I definitely was like, oh, we can do like the comeback story. You know, the Millennial Rebels reunite. But what to see in the future.
And 100% because like I mean, like you know, PWA just sort of they seem to run very sporadically ever since the start of COVID. I think they've
Mhm.
done maybe 2 shows, right? And
No, I think they've only done one.
well, they
It
know
was
they
just the
did.
one dome show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, like I say, they've been really sparse on their shows. So you guys have ended up wrestling in other places and stuff. And was there any was there any conversations that went on like when you decided that you were gonna start wrestling in RCW or Love Wrestling and everything? Like, did you have to clear that with the powers of PWA?
No, they cleared it up. I want to say like after the first year of quarantine. Because they thought like we're gonna start back up. They're very hopeful at the
Yeah,
start of quarantine, and then like yeah, because quarantine happened 2020, and I think by like the beginning of 2021, they were like, hey, if you want to wrestle for other promotions, go right ahead.
yeah.
Because like they didn't want to hold us back because of quarantine. They wanted us to still kind of get out there and work.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because like then you're not like your first show back isn't featuring a bunch of fat out of shape guys that haven't been in the ring in 2 years, you know,
Yeah, right.
like um for sure. There that sort of stuff. I think yeah, it's good that's like for the most part, size like exclusivity in promotions has pretty much become like a thing of the past out here. You know, like
Hmm.
every once in a while we get like little hubbubs and hard feelings being brought up or whatever, but for the most part I think people are pretty realistic about the fact that the guys just want to wrestle, you know.
Yeah, and I think like quarantine really changed a lot of that too. When it was like some people aren't wrestling anymore. You have half your roster size now. Well, we need to bring more people in. Let's ask these guys, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and like that's another thing is some of the wrestlers like weren't performing because not because they couldn't get booked or because they were wrestling for some other promotion that was at odds with the promotions that were still running. It was just
Hmm.
they, you know, it wasn't safe to go out and be in public spaces, and some people took that really seriously and didn't want to risk it for their family or whatever, which I think is totally absolutely okay and
Hmm.
whatnot.
I mean, I
And
was one of
now,
those guys.
yeah, like I was gonna say, I feel like you came and did a couple of shows in Calgary a little while ago, and then you were off for a while, and then it's not
Yeah,
until recently that you've really been started to back up where you're on your every weekend type thing, you
yeah.
know?
Like I did that Southern Alberta Invitational tournament.
Okay,
Um,
that was a
for
PPW show, right? For Steel.
no, it was the I don't know what it was the like the God, I don't know if they've put their names out there or not, but when it was like how they did like that Northern Alberta Invitational in
Yeah,
Edmonton and had a bunch of boys. Yeah, and they had one down
that was
there. It wasn't for PPW, but we used PPW's ring and venue.
oh, okay.
So I
That
did that.
must be why I thought it
Um,
was a PPW thing then.
yeah, because friends with the promoter, and I was like, yeah, I'll totally do this. So I came back and I did some training, and I just kind of took it easy for a bit, and then I did. an RCW show. I did one RCW show, and then COVID started picking back up, so I backed up again. And then I did Clandestine to Act 2. Clandestine Society Act 2. I was back up for that one. And then I actually caught COVID just before Act 3, so I couldn't go to Act 3. And I just kind of rode out until the vaccine came around. And then uh, that time I was in school, so it was kind of at a really strict schedule. And then eventually RCW reached out to me, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I don't remember if I reached out to LBW or if LPW reached out to me. Um, Regardless, got in touch with them and then started working their shows as well. And then since I've been done school, I've tried to pick up more bookings, worked more shows. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've been enjoying being involved in all this stuff too. Currently, you are kind of doing some pretty fun little internet uh, vignettes and stuff online with Mars the Specialist.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't want to like this is going to air in a couple of weeks, but I don't want to like kill the magic or get you to reveal the payoff or anything. But
Mm-hmm.
how have you liked being involved in doing that sort of like stuff and stuff with the Archer Report and like the things that are kind of on the fringe of wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
but are also like involve you being like a performer?
I really like it. If I'm being honest, like I love doing that kind of stuff. Like when I started coming back to wrestling this year, like I wanted to make it apparent I want to try and cut as many promos as I can to like better my promo skills. And before quarantine, Archer was running the Archer reports for PWA. I thoroughly enjoyed being a part of them, and even now with LPW, I enjoy being a part of them. So when Mars and I were thinking about doing these skits, I was totally down for it. I'm down to do more too. I think it's a weird catch-22 because it's like if fans don't go to watch the videos, they don't understand, but the ones that do really understand. And I think it adds that depth. Like, like this is our backstage scene on Raw. This is our little video packages that you would see on TV if you were watching Monday Night Raw or SmackDown and AEW. Right? These
Yeah,
are ours, and I like taking part of it because I want to be involved in all aspects of it.
I hear you. I mean, I know that when Archer first like uh used to pitch the Archer Report to new people that didn't understand what it was, he'd be like, it's kind of like being the elite, but for local Alberta guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty apt the way it is. Like that's a good description of it. And I think he's been doing a lot of like really creative stuff on there too. Like some of my favorite episodes are like the parodies like of movies and stuff. Like we
Yep.
did one where he's like we did a Weekend of Bernie's one, and we did a Freaky Friday thing where people like switch bodies and stuff. It's all really out there, silly things, but
Mm-hmm.
brings a lot of entertainment value too.
It does. It just it's also like it's kind of like you said, like being the elite kind of made the elite more personable in a way because you kind of got to see their life, and like this one, you're kind of getting to see these wrestlers in a new light, and you're seeing these interactions that maybe you don't really quite hear in the ring,
Hmm.
but you'll actually get to hear and see it all on these videos, right?
Yeah, and like they range in like production styles from like there's some that are scripted like almost word for word, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's some that are not scripted at all, and there's some where it's like, oh, something's happening, turn on the camera and catch what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and like you get the full range on those, and that's something I appreciate too, just because like I don't know, I'm for me, there's always a element of like I really like improvisational stuff, like I could appreciate a well executed script and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so much harder and so much more deserving of reward to just be able to come up with some wacky idea off the spur of your moment and like off the tip of your mind or whatever, and just do that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I have a great amount of appreciation for both.
Yeah. I really like that middle ground where it's like, here's the direction, do whatever you want to get there.
Mhm.
right? Like it's like say like we and you are gonna have a match. You need to
Yeah.
find a reason for you and Goose to have a match, and it's like okay, cool. And I just make up the rest myself because you're right. Like having that kind of like off the cuff, whatever you can think of at the moment, kind of can birth some really great ideas.
Yeah, and I don't think it's exclusively to Archer reports and stuff. Like we can like there's matches like I've been in where, I'll show up at the show and we plan out the whole match and move for move, we know what's gonna happen. And then there's other nights where I've showed up and the guy's like, well, you know how to wrestle, I'll see you out there. And it's like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
And then you go out there and yeah, you just you know, act like you know what you're doing and have fun, and
Right? Fake it till you make it.
I've had some tremendous, like, stuff, and, like, 90% of the time, I prefer, like, like, a certain portion of the matches is, like, just called on the fly, and whereas, like, we'll plan out the very intricate things that need to be planned, but then, like,
Mhm.
at a certain point, it's like, "Okay, let's just, riff around for a while," you know?
Yeah, and I agree. Like I like you plan out your difficult spots, but otherwise it's just kind of like read the room.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was a time. Oh man, it was for Force Pro, one of their early shows, and and I was wrestling Bill Yates, and we really didn't like plan anything at the start because it's like I was babyface, he was heel. He was quite over as a heel. I was over as a babyface, so we didn't feel the need to like go too crazy with the shine.
And he's been wrestling for a long, long time, so he's
Long
like
time.
I've found that it's a lot of those old school brothers that are the ones that are like, "Yeah, you know how to wrestle, I'll see you out there." Like,
Hmm.
and,
Yeah,
they don't
like
wanna
we.
sit around and plan your Orange Crush power bombs and stuff. No, they're
Yeah,
gonna go out there and just call it to you while you're
yeah.
wrestling and,
But
you know
like we planned our intricate stuff, but like it just in the shine alone, it was just like playing with the crowd, like because he was carrying his I don't remember what belt he was carrying at the time, but I called it a Walmart belt, and the crowd was just yelling Walmart at him, right? That he bought it at Walmart, and he would yell back at the crowd, and it was like that was a good like 2 3 minutes. So like okay, cool, we can go right into a heat. Like we don't need to do much from here.
Yeah, yeah. I exactly, like, I understand where you're coming from, like, it just when you have those, like, you know like, it's a live show, like, that's
Hmm.
my favorite part about what we sorta do is that, like, it yeah, you can put wrestling on TV and stuff, but, like, I enjoy live wrestling 10 times more than I
Oh,
enjoy televised wrestling,
entirely,
like,
entirely. It's a whole different ball game.
yeah, and, like, even, like, I haven't wrestled for television, like, maybe once we did for that, we did the iPay-per-view in Manitoba. It was for CWE, and I think my match for there got recorded for a YouTube thing. But I didn't change up what I do because
Hmm.
I was just like, okay, this is kind of what's got me here, so I'll just do this. There was one point where my opponent like grabbed me and switched me. I was like, oh, work the hard cam, brother. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is. But I mean, other than that, like, it's always been you just go out there and vibe off the people and it's a lot of fun. But like, there's still definitely a lot of times where things are planned and stuff. And I'll tell you though, there's nothing worse than when you have like this dope plan in your mind and it just doesn't work. Like,
It happens.
yeah. And then but like the thing that's great is you have the complete opposite where you have nothing planned. And then you go out there and you fucking kill it. And just things go amazingly. And like
Mhm.
that is like the that's like the best feeling.
No, yeah, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
There's some there's nothing worse than like planning something really intricate and it kind of falls through in like a really weird spot. But then at the same time, it's like you didn't plan anything. You guys just did some shoot something in the ring, and it turned out great, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um Besides Lance Storm and Giselle Shaw, who are two pretty big names that you were involved with training with, no offense to the Italian Big Boss Man. But besides those two that have kind of got names, who else are some names we might recognize that you've been fortunate enough to be in the ring with?
Michael Richard Blaze for one. Um, Early on in my tag career, we did a rivalry with him and Brandon Van Danielson. Had a false count anywhere match with him with my Mayhem title for PWA. Got to train with him, of course, because he started his training school. So got to do stuff with that. Work with him with Clandestine was been a lot of fun as well. I wrestled heavy metal once for RCW. I wrestled really just a lot more of the locals, like Mars the Specialist, and I had like a war over summer for RCW,
Okay.
which was a lot of fun. One of my favorite rivalries I've had.
Yeah, those guys
Um,
that you mentioned are all like fantastic. Like I've been
mhm,
in I've been in a tag match against MRB, and obviously like I train with him and stuff too, and he's one of those guys where he's kind of like one of them that's on my like list of guys I want to wrestle in the singles before I have to go out with for my knee thing. But
mhm.
yeah, no, I've wrestled metal, and then recently I got to wrestle with Mars the Specialist, and I thought that was an absolute treat. Like it was like a very fun, you know, match to put together, and we had a lot of fun in the ring, and it wasn't like a stressful situation. It was literally I went to that Love Pro show that they did at the outdoor hockey arena,
Mhm.
and I went to help set up the ring and stuff, and Spencer just said, "Hey, Goose, do you want to wrestle Mars the Specialist?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And then we it was like, "Okay, you guys got 8 to 10," and we went out and had a really like a fun match, and it was a great honor for me because like I had just made like a list of like 10 guys that I want to wrestle before I have to go for my surgery or whatever.
Mhm.
And Mars was on the list, and the fact that it was as good of an experience as I was hoping for is killer.
Yeah, I remember that show. It was 3 matches. I remember Mars came up with me for training, and you were there at training.
Yeah, we did the training camp, like it was the mini camp for
Yep.
Clandestine Society, and I don't know if this is going to air before then or not, but I believe the next one is going to be the 12th and 13th of November.
Yeah, sounds right.
If it's not the 12th and 13th, it's 11th and 12th. But it's in November, and if you want to be a part of that and come train with Thickness and myself, and more importantly, people like MRB and Zoe, and Taryn was at the last one. Uh, Stephen Crow was at the last one. Jack Pride was at the last one. Son of Irish.
Mhm.
So, like, there's an immense amount of talent, and like, yeah, if you want to get in on that, definitely get a hold of MRB because it's worth it, and it's a fun time for
Mm.
sure.
And it's nice to
Especially,
have, like, a lot of these other guys and gals come out to, like, not only just kinda, like, brush up on the basics, but, like, be there to help because it's like, there's a difference between, like, you're going there for training and you're wrestling some other guy who was also there for training, but then actually getting the opportunity to be like, "Alright, I'm learning from MRB, but then I'm gonna go do my move with Jack Pride, who can also kind of help me," right?
yeah, yeah, and I mean, like, it's definitely been an interesting thing for me because like you get to work with everybody from people that have far more experience than you do to people that have never been in the ring before,
Mhm.
and then like you gotta kind of vary your style like accordingly, right? Like if you lock up with somebody brand new, maybe they're being really tight and like rigid and stuff, and you gotta tell them like, hey, loosen up, man, or
Mhm.
maybe it's like you're locking up with like a really experienced person, and you realize, oh, I'm the one that's really being rigid and tight right now, and I should loosen up.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very interesting, and I love being a part of it. So, but anyway, like I was gonna say, if you want to be a part of that, definitely get a hold of MRB. Thickness. So you actually haven't had a chance to be on in the ring with anyone that's been on like TV or something. Like, see,
Um,
I would have expected you to have had at least like 6 matches with Gangrel by now.
no, I guess like the closest to like a name you would say was like I was in like a triple threat with the Billingtons 2 weeks ago. Like the
Okay,
Billington Bulldogs. They would be the closest at the moment.
all
Um,
right,
but I think as like time moves on, I'm sure opportunities will present themselves.
yeah, 100%. And I mean, like you're really really good, so I would assume that that'll happen to you like sooner rather than later,
Yeah,
especially like if,
fingers crossed. Yeah, you
yeah.
never know with LPW, right? Like they've been really given a lot of opportunities for people to wrestle some bigger names.
Yeah, and I mean, they've been like even a lot of their guys are becoming big names. Like there was
Hmm.
a bunch of people that were on LPW shows on AEW last week, like Voros's, Bollywood Boys, Jody Threat.
Hmm.
Yeah, just Kid Chocolate, like a
Yep.
bunch of people. Kid Chocolate's been killing it lately.
Yep. Just getting everywhere. It's awesome.
Were you was Kid Chocolate part of your Millennial Rebels tag team?
No, he joined Colton Kelly like I want to say the just like the latter half of 2020, no 2019 it was. They kind of joined up together. So no, it was past when I was there.
Oh, okay. So you had already like left the faction before he joined up.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Still, I think he's really good.
He is really good.
Tell me about your match in the Calgary dome there.
Oh man, which one?
Well, yeah, well, like the first one. Let's go with the first one.
So
Who did you wrestle on the first one?
it was a battle royale for my Mayhem Championship. Um, I don't know if I remember them, but it had Jack Pride, Burek Orani, Big Bad Boris was in that Rumble.
Of course he was.
I don't know if you remember Mephisto from PWA earlier years.
I've
Um,
heard the name.
who else was in there? Titan. I don't even remember. There was a bunch. We had a bunch of guys for that one, and that was a lot of fun. That was my first time being in the ring with Jack Pride, and I believe that was one of the times me and Beerat also got to do a few things because I believe after that we had a match to get our first singles match against each other, and that one was a lot of fun. Like we didn't really know what to expect because like we were setting up the ring after the hockey game. Who's going to stay after the hockey game for this wrestling show?
Mhm.
But it was a lot of fun. And if you ever ask Big Bad Boris, he is very happy that I bumped for him. We had a plan for him to kind of do one thing and then get out really quickly. And I went up and we were kind of like going around thinking of spots and I'm like, oh, I'll bump for you. So he gave me a shoulder tackle. He was very happy about this. Every time we see each other, it's just like, hey, I bumped for you. So that one was a lot of fun. And it was like the first time being in front of a crowd that size. Like I think we had 3,000 people at the first dome show.
Okay, well that's pretty
And
cool.
oh, it was wild. Like my entrance music got played at the dome. I was on like the big screen because as the battle royal, I was the only one who had an entrance. Everyone else
Okay.
came out at the same time. So like there was like a moment where I'm just kind of like sitting there, like just staring at the crowd. I'm like, oh my god, this is the craziest thing ever. We got to change in like one of the just like the I think it was the lacrosse team's change room in the back, but it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And
Was that
then
it was like Bret Hart Appreciation Night or
yeah,
something. Did you get
because
to meet Bret?
um Remember, did I get to meet Brett? I want to say I did because we also ended up putting up the old WWF ring that Brett owns. We
Just
put
for,
that
like, kicks
they
or
set it
something?
they
Like, that's
set
a
it up. No, I think they set it up so you can take pictures with Brett there. So there was a few of us setting that up early morning that day, which was a really cool experience. Like to like see the old ring and like it had like the old turnbuckle pads and everything.
yeah. Did you guys bump around in it?
Oh yeah, it was so stiff.
Oh, okay.
Oh
So,
man, it had no
not too
give.
much. You took,
No,
like,
oh
1 or
no,
2,
no.
and you were like, "Oh, I'm
Oh
good."
no,
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I want to say myself. Mo, Kid Chocolate, Michael Richard Blaze, and maybe a couple other guys took a bump in it just to say we took a bump in that ring. Oh god, it was so stiff. No wonder all those guys have like hip and back problems.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting thing because like rings are made in all different configurations. I've seen at
Mhm.
least, 5 or 6 different types of rings, and they all vary in like comfortability and
Mhm.
stuff. Like some are, yeah, they're nice and soft to bump in, but like we I don't know if you were there for that one show where we had the white pads on RCW ring
I was
because like
there for the underlay,
okay,
like the
well
carpet
we
underlay, so that might have been before that.
okay, well, we did this was fairly recently, like, we had the gray foam, and then that got so pulverized that, people were complaining and stuff, and rightfully so, and then so, uh, Squiggy bought some, like, white foam, and it was much thicker and way softer to bump on, but the problem was it was like running in goddamn quicksand. Like, literally, like, you try
Oh,
to hit
so
the rope
squishy.
yeah, it was way too like, you
Oh
literally
no.
couldn't lift your legs, and so I think we actually went back to the crappy gray underlay, and people were like, "Well, it's at least we can run now."
At least we can run the ropes. Oh, that's
Yeah,
brutal.
and then we finally, started using this stuff that, Kat Von Hees and, Bobby Sharp have, been providing, and since then, that's been, like, probably the best ring that I get to bump in. But
Yeah, it
also,
is
like
really nice.
yeah, like, the Top Talent ring is really good too. The,
Mhm.
the
LPW one's nice.
yeah, LPW has a good one. The one of the weirder ones was the Big West, ring, the one I just came from,
Mhm.
because he doesn't use, like, steel, beams across the middle of the ring like the RCW one does. It's
Mhm.
he literally uses, like, 2 by 6s stood up on their side, so it's like the 2 by s like, the long part is
Yeah,
there, and yeah,
interesting.
you're not getting a whole lot of give out of that.
No, no,
Uh
you're not.
Yeah, it's,
Oh man.
yeah, it's a bit stiff ski, that one, but probably nowhere near as bad as the what was it, 1987 Bret Hart ring that you
Oh,
guys
so
set up.
I've come to learn, and I'll talk about the other time we were at the dome, but I've come to learn any ring that has a spring in the middle is stiff.
I've also heard that the PWA ring from Calgary, the red one, was a nightmare.
We had a red one. It was super easy to set up. I mean, like one guy could literally set up that whole ring because there was no big pieces,
Yeah.
but it was so stiff to bump in because it has spring in the middle and the spring wasn't new,
Okay,
right?
so it's
Whereas I
just
find like,
rusty or something, like
yeah, just old, not as, and probably could use some WD-40, a lot of it.
yeah.
Um, but like, like the Edmonton ring, um, the LPW ring, all of them have nothing in the middle. Even the RCW ring, like there's no middle
Yeah.
support. It's just
I
cross
don't think I've
beams.
I don't think I've ever seen a ring with a spring in the middle.
You're very fortunate. They
Yeah.
are stiff.
Which you
But
would think is counterintuitive to the point of putting a spring in the middle, like
yeah,
yeah.
yep.
Um,
It also used to hop sometimes too. That PWA red ring for Calgary. Like if we didn't quite do the cable around the bottom right, when you ran the ropes, it like hopped
oh,
and like the ring would move. It was bad. It was bad. We got rid of that ring, thankfully.
okay.
It's no longer around
Right.
because now we have Lance Storm's old ring, and that's the ring we used for the second dome show. And the second dome show, I got to wrestle Shikak Bar Shabazz in a tables match, and I would have to say that's probably my favorite experience.
Yeah.
So like we did like it was almost like a big interview, like a what did they call it? It was myself, Gigi Ray, and Dirty Duke Durango. We got to a press conference. We're gonna go to a press conference.
Oh,
So
okay.
dress up all. So this is kind of a funny story. We dress up all nice. I got my title belt. I'm here to promote my match against Shigak Bar Shabazz. Still kind of in COVID at the time, so I'm like, I don't know what I'm expecting at this press conference. So I'm like, oh, it's probably gonna be like 6 people and a couple cameras.
Yeah.
And I walk out, go on the podium, I turn around, and there's got to be 30 people in this room.
So significantly more than you expected.
Significant. Oh, so like I cut a terrible promo because I was just like, oh, I'm so nervous. I did not expect
They're
this.
like, "How are you doing tonight? Thickness?" And you were like, I'm
Uh,
sore, I'm
I
tired,
literally,
I'm fucking
I,
hurt, and I work with fucking children."
I literally told them I'm so sorry. I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
And then we got to cut promos around the arena, which was cool. So I got to cut one at like the Zamboni entrance because that's where we enter from the wrestling. And then we actually got to go to a Calgary Hitman game, and they actually like put us in like the owner's box,
Oh, nice.
which was really cool. We cut promo during one of the intermissions, which was a lot of fun. And then after the game, they actually snuck us out the back. It's like I felt like a famous person. I felt like a movie star. It was so cool. And then show day, um, we set up the ring, and Sheik and I have a tables match. It was a lot of fun. I always enjoy wrestling. Sheik was my first match, and we've had a few singles matches. But he's definitely one of my favorite guys to wrestle.
Nice. I've only ever been in I think Battle Royal with him, and it's fun though.
No, it
I would
is
like, he's one of those guys I'd definitely like to have a match with. Same with you, like one of those
definitely.
guys that's been around for a long time. I just haven't had the opportunity to have like a one-on-one match. I'm sure we've been in battle royals or something, but
I mean,
yeah,
you were
we
in
did.
the first contestant show together.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that one. I remember backstage we're going over the match and stuff, and then you were like, "Hey, why don't you come and hit me with some cool move? What do you want to do?" And I was like, I'll flap my wings and give you a clothesline. Like I didn't have a whole lot of like confidence or whatever, but now I might have suggested something a little more eager, not quite
I
Orange Thunder Bomb level, but
yeah. No, it's funny enough. Me and B Rat were actually showing Mars that whole show, and so
okay.
I got to rewatch that match, the clusterfuck or the tribute to the clusterfuck, I should say.
Hmm.
And just looking back, it's like some of the things I'm like, oh, this is so bad, and some of them like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. We actually did a lot of fun things in there because
Yeah,
that was at the time like when like Michael started doing camps and training.
yeah,
So like that's when like because like I know you did a bunch of moves with Sydney in there, and I mean you won the match
yeah. I did.
with a great finish, I might add.
Oh yeah, I punched out.
Yeah, punched out Tex Gaines.
Yeah, and he told me to just legitimately punch him.
Oh, you
So,
did. You gave him a goose egg.
oh, yeah, I did because
Yeah,
he told me to, and I was like,
yeah,
well, if he's telling me to, I'm not gonna be a pussy about it. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I was very. There's a lot of good memories from that night, and like just kind of I remember like putting it together, and we had the plan for you to go over, and I don't know. I don't even know if it's available to watch anymore. I don't know if it's still on YouTube or not, but um, the idea we had going in was that we wanted Tex to come in but not do anything. Um, so we had Tex come out, and actually, my fiance offers him a beer from the crowd, and he goes and sits down by her.
hmm,
And then later on, you come out and show, and then our idea was give you a big move so you can go sell out of the ring, and then people will forget you're there because you wanted to be like, oh wow, the goose is the last one, right?
hmm.
But watching back, Sydney comes out for his entrance. His dad's sitting in the chair drinking a beer, and he comes out and just plows through him sitting on the chair. And we were at Mars, and I were just dying watching that because it
Yeah,
was not something we planned at all, not something that was expected. But the whole like at the end of the match, it worked well. We had a double elimination, and then you roll out, and it's like, oh yeah, the goose won, and then Tex Gaines comes out, and you just give him a good clock on the head, 1, 2, 3, and the building erupted. It was
yeah.
awesome.
I remember Ben was the referee, and when I hit text, there was an audible sound from Ben, like "oh," like
Yeah, you
like
could, yeah, oh, it was so good.
yeah, it was fun. I mean, I did feel like my biggest criticism was that Sydney came out and he did all this really cool stuff, and then me being the baby face eliminated him, and people were like, oh, we don't like that. And then it was like, oh no. But so I think it kind of killed a little bit of my steam there. But I think by the end of it, we
You
got
still
it
had
back.
steam. Watching it back, you still had steam. They still loved it when you knocked out Tex.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy working with all three of those guys. I'd like to do like some sort of fucking storyline or something where it's Tex and his boys against me and like two of my guys or something. That'd be
Yeah, that'd be
pretty
cool.
fun. Yeah. Um, anyway, we have gotten to the hour long point here, bud. Um, what is where can the people find you if they, and especially like if anyone would like to book you for their wrestling shows and stuff, where can they contact you?
You can always reach out to me on social media. The Thickness 7 on Instagram and Twitter. Reid Matthews on Facebook.
Okay, folks. Well, those were all the social media plugs from the Thickness Reid Matthews, who I would like to extend a huge thank you for being on the show today. I always have a good time chatting with Reid, and I look forward to seeing him at some upcoming shows. Hopefully, he gets the team going with Marsa Specialist because I think the Short Kings would be great, and I'm very much looking forward to hopefully getting to wrestle with him at some point as well. Um, he's giving big thumbs up because he can't hear any of the things I'm saying right now. But anyway, I've been Kyle Shaw here for Love Pro Wrestling or Love Wrestling. This is Monday Night Shaw. You've been listening, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Thank you.